I'll tell you a story from my childhood. You know, I was one of these guys that didn't have the best childhood, so I don't really talk about stories like this, but there's a lesson that's so profound in this story that I can't help but not tell it.
Next up, Ryan, hardcore closer, Stewman.
I welcome you to the YouTube of the doo-doo. Rewire minds and changes lives. I went from selling dope, now I'm selling hope. It's all about helping others grow. You ain't know. It's Ryan Stewman.
See, I don't have a dad anymore. My dad left at a young age. I was probably 6 years old when he split, and we hadn't had a relationship since, really. But my dad was a champion dog trainer. He still is, right? If you knew his name, you could look him up and see that there's all sorts of videos about him. He's one of the greatest animal trainers to ever live. Well, back before he was the greatest, he was working, just like all of us do. We were refining what we're good at. We got little side hustles. We're making things work, all that good stuff. And one of the things my dad did, he trained world-class horses, right? But as a side hustle, he would train hunting dogs, bird dogs. And so like all the farmers, they love to hunt quail, and so they bring my dad these bird dogs, these pointers is what they were called. And so my dad, he'd spend a couple months training these dogs right before quail season, and then he would sell the dogs back to him. He'd probably charge them $500 to $1,000 to train these dogs. Well, so I would watch my dad how he trained these dogs. He would go out on the back end of our property, and he had a fishing pole, a Zebco 33. I remember this like it was yesterday. And at the end of the Zebco 33, he had a quail feather on it, and it had a weight, like a fishing weight on it. So he would take the Zebco 33, and he would cast the feather out there, and he would train the dogs to point at the feather. Okay. Well, these farmers would typically, let's say quail season opens in September, November. These farmers would usually drop the dogs off in July or August so that they would be fully trained and ready to go by the time quail season arrived. My dad, every evening, he would go out there and work with each dog individually. And if you know anything about bird dogs or pointers, they keep them in cages. They're not allowed to run free. They live in cages most of their lives so that they don't get messed up. They serve a purpose. They're working dogs. They're not pets. My dad had one rule. Son, whatever you do, don't go back there and mess with the bird dogs. But here I am, a little 5, 6-year-old kid, and I'm watching my dad go back there and play with the Zebco 33 and these bird dogs, man. And it looks like it's a lot of fun. I mean, my dad's spending time out there, and it's a job to him. It's just a side hustle. But to me, I'm like, dude, these dogs look awesome. They're in cages, you know, and as a bleeding heart little kid, you're like, dude, I want to go out there and play with these dogs. So one night my dad goes out of town. He's got a horse show that he's going to. So he loads up the trailer and the truck, and he goes out to the horse show, which might have been in another state or whatever. And I think, this is my opportunity. I get an opportunity to go out there and play with these bird dogs. My dad ain't around. He'll never know. So I go out there and I grab the Zebco 33 out of the barn with the quail feather attached to it. I go unleash one of the dogs out of the back of the thing, and I'm playing fetch with the dog. It's like the funnest experience of my little kid life, right? I'm playing fetch. The dog's running out there, and he's grabbing the feather and bringing it back to me, and we're just having a great old time. A couple days go by, I don't think nothing about it. Put the dog back, put the Zebco 33 right back where it belonged in the barn. Not a word said about it. My dad shows up a couple days later. He's back from the horse show. He goes out there to work with the dogs, and he works with 2 or 3 of the dogs, and finally the dog that I played with, he brings him out of the cage, and he throws the feather, and I see the dog, and I'm all excited about it. I see the dog go out there and grab the feather and bring it back to him, and I see my dad break the damn fishing pole over his leg and just storm back to the house. And I hear my mom yelling at him in the other room, and I think, man, what's going on here? My dad opens the door to my room, and he says, son, have you been playing with the bird dogs? And I did what any kid would do. I lied, right? I said, no, Dad, I hadn't been back there at all. You told me not to mess with them. He goes, I know you have. I said, how do you know I have? He said, because the dogs are doing something different than I trained them to do, and the only way they do that is if someone else went out there and messed with them. Since you and your mom, according to your mom, you're the only person that's been here besides her this whole entire time, so it had to be you. And finally, after some coaxing and probably an ass whipping from my dad, I admitted that I had messed with the dogs. And first, he whipped my ass for lying. I shouldn't have lied to him. The second, he whipped my ass because he told me not to do something, and I did it anyway, and it cost our family money because now he's got to retrain this dog and hopefully get him in shape by the time bird season comes, which is just around the corner at this point. He'd been working with these dogs for a month or so. I've thought about that story my entire life. And the reason why is not because of the dogs or the ass whipping, but in one instant, I changed that dog's mind, I changed that dog's mentality, and I fucked up a lifelong of training. And a lot of us are that same way, right? In one instant, we decide not to go to the gym. And the next day, we decide not to go to the gym again, and we never correct the behavior that we spent years of our lives working on. Many people, they work out through their 20s, and in their 30s and 40s, they stop being healthy. They think, I did it in my 20s, I'm good, I'm getting older, there's an excuse.
I went from selling dope, now I'm selling hope. It's all about helping others grow. You ain't know. It's Ryan Stewman.